right, Astros fans, this is Mr. Johnson. I'm here to talk to you a little bit today about first century Jewish groups. If you've been thinking that up until this point that every Jew is the same, then boy, you sure are wrong. We've seen many different types of Jews, from priests to prophets to kings to patriarchs. But what about during the first century? What about regular Jews? I have to tell you, gentlemen, the Jews are pretty much like your garden variety high school cafeteria, one that includes girls, especially mean girls. There are band geeks, there's popular kids, there's punks, there's nerds, there's jocks, there's all kinds of different people. And first century Jews were just as diverse. So we'll be looking at these different types of groups. And you have to remember that people could change their stripes, and these criteria are not always hard and fast or complete classifications. There were Sadducees, rich, popular, in control, Pharisees, rule followers, similar to Jesus in many ways. The Essenes, those weird, silent kids who might at any time announce the end of the world, and John the Baptist might have been influenced by these. Zealots are your jocks, violent terrorists who wanted to fight the Romans and bring about a political Messiah and restore the kingdom. Simon the Apostle and Judas Iscariot might have been zealots. Some theologians propose that Judas betrayed Jesus to force him to become a political Messiah and fight for his life. And finally, you've got other groups, and we'll talk about those other groups a little later. So, the first group that we have to look at are the Romans. The Romans were, the imperial empire of Rome, very hungry for power, but also very hungry for peace. And so the Jews are going to cry out from this oppression. They do not want to be oppressed by the Romans. They want self-rule. They want to be on their own. The teacher equivalent of this, Father Fulton. I'm boss, but you might also call me your oppressor. The next religious group that we have to look at are known as the Sadducees. This is the priestly class, the class of aristocrats. They're going to be centered in Jerusalem. They're going to work with the Romans to stay in power because they don't want to fall out of power. They're a very elite group. They're going to be very concerned with following the law, yes, but not really interpreting the law. Temple sacrifice was very important to the Sanhedrin and the Sadducees. And the Sadducees were mostly members of the Sanhedrin, which was 71 members who determined all the different laws and rules, and also sentenced Jesus to death. The teacher equivalent of the Sadducees, well, I'm not really sure of one. I don't want to make fun of somebody too much, and so I will not make a teacher equivalent there. Here's a picture of some Sadducees. Notice the rich cloth looks very similar to the high priestly clothes. The next group is known as the Pharisees. They're going to believe in hyper-strict observance of the law. They're going to be kept away from sin and the Gentile influence. They're mainly middle-class Jews. They're going to accept the writings of the prophets as inspired, as well as the Torah. They're going to rely very heavily on the oral tradition, and they thought that you could earn heaven by keeping the religious customs and law. They were very much experts at the law, and they were always debating, and that's why we see them interacting with Jesus, always debating the law and what the law meant. Paul, the Apostle Paul, was probably a Pharisee before he converted to Christianity. The next group that we're going to talk about, well, first there's a picture. Here's a picture of some Pharisees. Notice their clothes a little more subdued from the Sadducees. Teacher equivalent for Pharisees, most teachers are Pharisees because we really want you to follow the law, follow the rules. And so we're probably all Pharisees at times. The next group are known as the Essenes. They believe that God was coming, but only through a catastrophic end times event. They're going to live strict lives away from all of civilization. Your garden variety, end of the world is coming. Go and hide. Go and wash yourself. They really believe in ritual washings. They're going to hide their writings in seaside caves like the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're going to live very austere lives, avoiding luxury. John the Baptist might have been a member of an Essene community before he left to preach the coming of Jesus Christ. So here's some ritual washing. Here's the Dead Sea Scrolls. Here's an Essene community at Qumran, an Essene cave where scrolls were probably kept. The teacher equivalent, Mr. Wardwell, let's all live in the woods and play bongo drums for Jesus and wait for the end time. Yeah, that sounds like Wardwell, I bet. The next group that we're going to talk about are the Zealots. Zealots are freedom fighters. They wanted to kill Romans and get them out so that they could reinstitute the kingdom of Israel. You can take a look and pause this video at all these scripture verses that are going to talk about violence and overthrowing foreign enemies. And so the Zealots are going to be all about killing Romans. In very much contrast to the Essenes, they don't think that there's going to be any change from inner purification. You must do outer actions. You must kill Romans. You must overthrow. You must kick them out. They're not going to be interested in Jesus' teachings of peace and love for one's enemies. The teacher equivalent? Coach Fitz. Just hit somebody already. That's Coach Fitz. Also, you could understand that many of the Jews are going to think that, because the Zealots are out there fighting, that the Messiah must be a fighter too, and that's where the idea of Rambo Jesus comes from. One quick note, make sure that you understand the key difference between Pharisees and Sadducees. Pharisees, all about the law. Sadducees, all about the temple. Pharisees interpret the law. Sadducees, yeah, we'll follow the law, but just the law. Pharisees, middle-class guys. Sadducees, upper-class elites. Pharisees, believe in the resurrection of the dead, that our bodies will be united with our souls at the end in heaven. Sadducees don't really believe in the resurrection. They don't also believe in afterlife either. Pharisees are going to believe in the afterlife. Pharisees are going to reject the Jewish leaders. The Sadducees are the Jewish leaders, and so they're going to work to try to support themselves and work to keep the Romans in power as well. Now, there are some other groups we need to talk about. Those are scribes, Herodians, the followers of John the Baptist, and the dispossessed. Scribes were very much also concerned with interpreting the law and that process. Herodians are going to be followers of King Herod, and they're basically like mafiosos, and they're going to be around at the same time and not really going to be too concerned with following the religion, but with kind of staying in power. Many people thought that John the Baptist might have actually been the Messiah, and so you have some of these followers who are still championing that idea when Jesus Christ comes, even though John the Baptist told them to go and follow Jesus. And finally, you have what are known as the dispossessed. These are the poor, these are prostitutes, these are sinners, these are tax collectors, these are people who are looking for hope, and they find that hope in Jesus Christ. Before Jesus, most of them probably looked to the Zealots who are willing to take action and fight for their freedom, but with Jesus, many of the dispossessed, sinners, just like us, come to follow Jesus. Thanks, gentlemen, for paying attention to this quick little video. Make sure that you study for a quiz tomorrow, that you have notes, because it is an open note quiz. It must be handwritten notes. Thank you again.